Welcome to the Koenigsegg stand at the Geneva 2015 Motor Show. This is the second ever car that Koenigsegg produced, and it's nice to sort of actually see it here so you can kind of see how the cars have moved on since then, or not in perhaps your opinion. They've obviously got some new stuff here. Just over there is the Regera RS, which is kind of a slightly, it's not softened exactly version of the 1.1, perhaps the sort of, I suppose, road-going version. It's got the convertible roof that can now go in the front. It's got a bit more luggage space and stuff, but still the same crazy sort of performance. However, talking of crazy performance, the real star is the car that's just over there, and we're going to get Christian Koenigsegg to talk us through all the tech, because frankly it is mind-boggling. So Christian is now going to talk us around the, now am I going to pronounce this right, Regera?
Yeah, we call it Regera in English. In Swedish it's more Regera. Regera is easier to say. So.
Which means, I gather...
It means to reign, like a ruler or a king is reigning. It's not water raining, but to rain. Yeah.
There we go. Where to start with this? The figures are extraordinary. 0 to 400 kilometers an hour in under 20 seconds.
Correct, yes.
And what's powering it? How's it doing that?
So, I've been dreaming for many years to figure out a way how to get rid of a traditional transmission or gearbox, because you're only using one gear set at a time. And if you're, for example, cruising on the highway, you have 6 or 7 or 8 gear sets just lying around, weighing down the car, doing nothing, waiting to be used sooner or later. It just feels so inefficient to have all this stuff hanging around if you don't use it all the time. And I couldn't figure out how to do it until about last summer, and it had to do with finding the right components that have the correct capabilities of being used all the time and compensating for not having all those gears. So it's kind of a hybrid, you could say. I don't really like to use the word hybrid because traditional hybrids I'm not a fan of, because they're usually overcomplicated. You have like a combustion engine car with gearbox and transmission and everything, and on top of that an electric car as well. So it's heavy, expensive, clumsy, and you don't get a good interior space and so on. Or vice versa, you have a quite compact system with a series hybrid where you only use a small combustion engine as a generator, but then you have the inefficiency of a conversion from mechanical movement to electric to mechanical movement, and it's very inefficient. So this way we can kind of have the compactness and lightweight of the series hybrid, but direct drive as well, as there is a shaft going from the engine direct to the rear axle out to the wheels with no transmission other than the final drive. So we get rid of all the unnecessary gears, we get direct drive, we have 5-6% less energy losses than any other mechanically driven car from the engine to the wheels, as it's the only one with no gearbox or multiple gear sets.
So we've got the engine essentially that we see in, say, the Regera RS, which I think is
correct
over there, twin turbo, putting about 1100.
Yeah, this is 1100 horsepower, so a little bit less than the RS because we put smaller turbos on, because we're really relying on bottom end torque to compensate for the fact we have no gears, in combination with 700 electric horsepower and 2000 newton meters of combined torque.
Wow, okay. And so the electric motors, you've got 3, is that right?
Yeah, so we have one 400 newton meter electric motor on the crank with 165 kilowatts. So when we close our hydraulic coupling at about 600 engine RPM, that gives already there 400 newton meters of bottom end grunt. And on top of that we have 200 kilowatt electric motors, one for each rear wheel, sitting outside the final drive, giving 700 newton meters each of direct drive torque. So those 2 rear motors on the rear axle is enough to take the car, well, we use it for reverse because we don't have a reverse gear. We use it going from, let's say, 0 to 30 miles per hour, only those. Then we start closing our hydraulic coupling. And when we close that, we actually get torque transfer from mostly the electric motor, because the combustion engine is only at 600-700 RPM.
Yep.
But quite soon thereafter, like a few tenths, we're up to 1000, up to 1200, up to 1500. At 2700 RPM, we already have over 1000 newton meters from the combustion engine. And then they're really interplaying all of the engines. And of course on highway travel, when you're doing like 70 or 80 miles per hour or something like that, you have like 1700 RPM on the combustion engine with direct drive, just cruising with no electrical support unless you ask for it, by pushing the throttle to the wall. Then you reactivate the electrical motors again.
Wow. So what does it feel like with no gears?
So anyone who's driven a powerful electric car knows the fantastic sense of instant reaction. It's like the most responsive combustion engine you could imagine, or beyond that. And of course here we have more electric power than any other electric production car on the road, including the P85D Tesla, which is phenomenal. A 2-ton car doing 0 to 60 in 3.2 seconds. This car weighs 600 kilos less, plus has 1100 combustion engine horsepower on top. So anyone who's driven a P85D, imagine adding 1,000 more or more horsepower and taking out 600 kilos of weight, and a roar from the titanium fishtail Akrapovi exhaust system.
I think that's my favourite detail. They just look so cool in the because the central, what looks like
the exhaust is a hot air outlet for inverter and electric motors and battery cooling. So there will be blowing hot air from there, but no smoke or anything because it's just hot air.
Okay.
And the actual exhaust is in the Venturi rakes as a titanium fishtail exhaust. And anyone who has listened to a titanium exhaust knows it's a crispy sound, and having straight walls coming out makes it even crispier. So you get this duplication of frequency effect. So 4,000 sounds like 8,000 RPM. More or less. And we need that because you can only have.
I should explain. We're getting interrupted by the sort of McLaren. It's got barely any horsepower, so it's not actually worth sort of ignoring. But there we go. Anyway.
But we need that duplication of sound because our speed, as soon as you have the hydraulic coupling closed, our speed and RPM is the same thing. Yeah. It's not like a horrible CVT or something when you floor it, the engine revs up and then the car's coming, it's like a rubber band. This is direct, like an electric car, but RPM and speed is connected. So that titanium guttural metallic roar with duplications effect comes into play because it sounds like higher RPM. It roars, it screams, but it's connected, not moving about. So many people will think, I'm going to miss shifting. And that's what I thought first. But when you get used to this instant reaction of massive power at like a flick of a switch, that's more addictive and fun than shifting.
Yeah. So we'll go through a few of the other details. We've got obviously beautiful wheels, again, full carbon.
Yes, this is our
wheels.
latest generation Aircore wheels that we did. We have now for the last 3.5 years been producing hollow carbon fiber wheels with great effect.
And they're slightly wider on the front, you said, this time?
It's wider, yeah, because we have the battery pack in the center of the car, so we're getting more of a clear 50-50 weight distribution. So we went from 265s to 275s. On top of that, there's a whole new rear end on the car, as we now have active rubber mounts for the transmission and the engine to make it more quiet. Before, on our other cars, they're always directly mounted as part of the chassis to have the lowest possible weight and the best kind of reaction going in a chicane or something. But this Focus is a little bit different, as it is more luxury road car oriented, like really creature comfort. It's got memory seats, it's got more sound insulation, rubber mounts, but still it's lighter than a Porsche 918.
So what is the weight?
So the dry weight is 1428, and the curb weight is 1640.
Right.
It's with a full tank of fuel and one person inside.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
it's still relatively light. It's just not as light as our more track-focused cars.
Obviously, we've got some aerodynamics here as well.
Yeah, we'll show this. I'm now acting as the hydraulic unit sitting inside. So we have the world's first fully foldable, top-mounted, active rear wing, including braking. Wow. So we pioneered the top-mounted active rear wing on the 121, and here we made a smaller, more elegant version that is fully foldable. The whole body can be had in a robotized condition where you can control it from your remote or app, so open and close the doors hydraulically, including the front and rear bonnet. On the doors, we have kind of like a parking sensor, so if there's something high, it will stop before it hits it, even if it's robotized. All the cars come with soft closing doors that we developed the mechanism ourselves.
Like an S-Class or something,
where
it pulls
down softly, even without the robotization, already on this car. And we created a really lightweight system, so there's very little weight penalty. Also, the robotized body is only 6 kilos weight penalty, because we anyway had the active ride height chassis hydraulics.
Yes.
So we just took a thin, lightweight
That's
tubing.
what we saw on the 1.1,
exactly.
first of all.
So we have very little weight penalty. We just replaced gas struts with hydraulic struts, and then some controlling strategies. We have active aerodynamics underneath the front, left and right. The rear is active aerodynamic, and the rake and height of the car is active, and then active shock absorbing. We have the Constellation DRLs.
Yes, they're very cool.
Night sky, you can find your star sign if you're lucky in there. It's just a fun idea. Everyone is doing these snakes or worms and this and that, and we just said, the hell with it, just throw them in there. And, it looks like we started moving them around, and it's just a fun thing.
So peak power you would have thought would be about 1800 brake horsepower, I suppose, if you add everything together.
Yeah, that's the logic when you look at it. But as the peaks of the electrical motors and the combustion engines they're not at the same point, they don't overlap perfectly, which is actually what we're after, because you get a much wider torque band, which is what you're driving on anyway.
Sure.
And we don't want like 1800 horsepower. In a sense, 1500 is already too much intuitively, but we don't have any gears to help us.
Yeah.
So we need all of them. And in the end, it doesn't accelerate much faster than our 1160 horsepower RS. It's a little bit heavier and it has no gears to help out, but that's the beauty of it as well, because you get that directness of the electrical motors. So it's just a new experience, a different experience, which I find very exciting.
So we've got the full sort of 0 to 400 kilometre an hour. Have you got any other sort of smaller increments?
So one fun number is 150 to 250 kilometers per hour, 3.2 seconds. And
Wow.
0 to 270 kilometers per hour in a dry day, you're on the slip limit. There is no way to put down more power through two wheels up to 270 kilometers per hour. So that's quite exciting.
Yeah.
And 0 to 300 is around 12.3 seconds, which is also very exciting.
Wow. Price?
So it starts at $1,890,000.
Okay. And have you sold? How many are you building?
Before we even showed the real car, which was today,
Yeah.
we took over the last couple of months 4 pre-orders.
And is there a limit? Are you going to build a specific
We're
number?
going to build over 4 to 5 years. We're limiting the number to 80 cars, and we can only do that by ramping up our production line, which we are doing now. So we're rebuilding the factory, putting in a secondary line for this, and we've already increased staffing with 30% the first 3 months this year.
Wow. Christian, thank you very much indeed. Pleasure talking to you as ever.
My pleasure.
So there we are, that's the Koenigsegg stand at the Geneva Motor Show 2015. I think you'll agree that Koenigsegg, despite being such a small manufacturer, it is staggering the amount of technology and the sort of the innovation really that we see in the cars. And Christian's so enthusiastic, and there's a distinct lack of sort of BS in what he says as well, which I just find really refreshing. The stand has been buzzing sort of all the time. We've been here with other people from other manufacturers, you notice them coming across to have a look and sort of almost sort of grudgingly sort of really enjoying the tech and the sort of stuff that they do. So there we go. Let us know what you think. Leave messages on sort of Facebook and Twitter and in the comments box below this. And if you think it's jättebra, it's apparently very good in Swedish, then yeah, leave your comments.